Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Boston Greeks podcast. We have a continuation of a series that we've been doing, and it's actually really exciting, especially if you're in the Boston area, if you could physically go to where our guests are representing, because these are like the hot spots. These are the cool, everybody's talking about them, a lot of stuff coming up for them. But that we're going to get into that whole conversation, but it's a continuation of our series with these amazing individuals. Before we get to this amazing individual, I'm going to bring my co-host Foti Stamos on. Hello, Foti.
Ari, how are you?
I am very good, man. What's going on? What are we doing today? Who are we talking to? Give us some of the good stuff.
Well, I think besides the best job that our guest has coming up, I think that we're very honored and fortunate to be able to host these segments so we can bring on interesting individuals that are making interesting things happen in Boston or in the Boston market and beyond, possibly. Right? Possibly. But as you said, this is another segment in the round and series of our representation of our good friends over at the Xenia Greek Hospitality Group, and we had the honor to kind of get to know some of the team members, Dimitris and Stefanos, and the chef that we were featuring a couple of weeks ago. And now with us, we have Beverage Director Lou Charbonneau. Lou, thank you so much for joining us. This is one of my dear and heart subjects, so I'm going to really be interested to hear a lot about who you are, your background, and how you are doing today in this position with the Xenia Greek Hospitality Group.
Welcome, Lou.
Thank you for having me on here.
Our pleasure, man. Our pleasure. Let's before we get into the current status, give us a brief history of who you are, where you're from, and what kind of led you down this path that you're on.
Oh boy. How long is this segment?
Yeah. you have 30 seconds. Quick.
No, I'm from Massachusetts. I grew up in Wistah. I came out here to Boston in 2010 after working on Nantucket for a couple of years, which
cool.
it was my first bar gig out there when I was 20.
was it so, just not to get off subject, but what's that experience like? Is Nantucket kind of like how you see in like shows and movies and stuff, or was it just a normal standard kind of thing?
No, nothing normal or standard about it. It's like I don't think I realized what I was getting myself into. I had a bunch of friends that had gone to the vocational school in Worcester, and somehow got linked up with a spot out on Nantucket, and they were like, "Hey, we're all going out. Do you want to do that?" And I had bus tables and done dishes and ran food in high school and stuff in the industry, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess." Like they said it would be a good time, and it was like summer camp for adults.
I was gonna say, if you were out there, especially with a group of guys, summertime, I mean, it must have been crazy.
Yeah, it was wild. Yeah, definitely not Worcester. So I think we were all kind of surprised at the level of opulence for some people's lives.
Yeah.
And, but it was a good time. It was a formative experience for sure.
Could I ask, is that where you kind of decided that this is kind of going to be your career path, or did that happen later on? Or
I think the notion of the possibility and the potential in continuing down it was certainly planted there. Because it's a seasonal job, and you have people from all over the world that just come and work for a few months, and then they go somewhere else, or they go back home, or whatnot. And it quickly became apparent to me that if you were inculcated in tending bar and you learned things and you knew how to do it, you could go anywhere and do that fundamentally. So as an option for firstly, like a stream of income, it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. You want to explore, be an adventure, but for myself now, like the creative aspect of it and the enjoyment of the guest interaction, all the people that you meet, and just the energy of it, that coupled with the potential for that was cool and inspiring for me. So I was like, everyone, you can make a cosmopolitan in Boston. You can make one in Tokyo, or you can make one in Athens. Like, theoretically, you could just go do that there. And that,
Yeah.
as a young guy, I was like, huh, I could travel the world and make drinks for people. So that was like a little seed.
Can I ask Lou a real quick question? Being
Yeah.
that you were in Nantucket, did you meet anyone famous while you were tending bar that you made drink for? Did you make any famous actor or athlete a drink while being out there?
No, I didn't. I think, well, here the thing is that for the venue that I was at, if we had any high profile people, they weren't sitting at the bar. They were
Gotcha. All right, that makes sense.
they were at a
That
table.
makes
Yeah.
sense.
So I saw them and may or may not have, decided to run drinks over myself to the table and then completely spilled an entire tray on top of it. I won't say who that was, but yeah.
Cool.
That's cool. So that was an experience that seemed like it would be something that's, definitely memorable for you. Seeds were planted, and where did you go next? What happened after that?
I moved to Boston after that, and thought, I had taken some time off from going to school, and then I was like, yeah, go to Boston, do some restaurant stuff, and do school. And that's what I started initially doing, and then quickly it was just like, it was bartend 24/7. Let's do this, But fortunately, when I got here, I had applied at a couple of different spots, and I thought to myself initially, like, oh yeah, maybe it makes more sense to just grab like a serving gig, get out a little bit earlier generally, a little different energy, and that coupled with being enrolled and doing a program, kind of made a little bit more sense. But I was like quickly snagged to hop behind the bar, and I was like, yeah, actually, you know what? This is way better. Let's just do this. And I fell in with a bunch of guys that had really been at the forefront of revitalizing cocktails in general in Boston in the 90s. They're all a lot older than I was, but I think I was really lucky to kind of get to work alongside those guys and learn from them, and hear all their stories. And so it like created like this foundation and kind of a context for like a timeline of like how things actually worked. And it caused me to have like an appreciation for what we do and why we do it, and
So
how
this
it becomes that.
that experience like gave you some of the practical kind of knowledge of what your career entails, right? These older guys kind of like showed you the ropes, kind of made you. I mean, I'm trying to think like, teach you like what not to do, teach you what you can do, teach you what the possibilities are. Kind of that experience is kind of like a really good thing to have as a young guy coming up in that. Does that sound
Yeah,
accurate?
no, for sure. Yeah, that is accurate, because I think it was, they had a lot of insights to like impart directly, like, hey, like, for instance, like every time I make a Vesper, like, and ever since then, like I still hear one of their voices in my head for, I can't help but not. But just like watching them interact with guests, and kind of what their thought process was, and just kind of like handling the bar, like there is a transactional nature of bartending, which I don't ascribe to, like, hey, what do you want here? You make it, whatever. But like, if you're really like tending bar, you're in control over like what's going on there, and you're throwing a party, and watching these guys like do it, I was just like, huh, all right, that's, apart from just learning drinks and honing technique, it was really about like being capable of running the bar, and everything that's going on throughout the whole night. You're not a vending machine. Yeah,
Yeah.
people
I've-
go into bars for other people.
Yeah, I think Lou, you raise a great point because I think in a lot of establishments that we might not frequent, but we go to, we're missing that element, and the fact that you're actually discussing it, I think that's a very important aspect of any concept or restaurant group. So the fact that you just mentioned that, I really appreciate that you bring it to light.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how close was that where you were at that point to hooking up with your current group? Was there a long road between then and here, or was it kind of like you kind of got snagged by these guys and you've been there since?
Well, the next leg of the the journey was I was doing this for a bit. I was like 2 years at that point, and then I was asked and tapped to do like some management stuff, and I thought, yeah, that'd be cool to get that under my belt. And so the group that I was working for asked me to go over to Sansi and manage it, and I was like, okay, like, and that was like the heyday, the golden era of like, Sansi was like the biggest thing in Boston. I was like, yeah, and so going over there, that's actually where I met Tasha. It was like 2012, so we've known each other for a very long time. But
For
she was
people
just coming
listening, who is Tasha exactly?
Tasha is our VP of operations for the group.
And that's somebody that we'll probably have on the show soon at some point, just so you guys know what he's talking about with Tasha. So you met Tasha, and sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, yeah, no, her and I were both managers there, just coming on, and that's kind of, I think, where it all went, because I did that for a while. She did that for a while. She went on to work for some other things. I took over some bar programs within that company. Kind of bounced around, helped open some other spots, and then a couple years down the line, when we were opening up committee in Seaport, they asked me what was going on, what I was doing, and I was stubborn, and I had some other things in the works. I was like, yeah, it seems cool, but I'm doing some other stuff. I went and worked in Thailand for a few months, consulting for some bar program there. It helped open up Cafe Art Science out in Kelly Square. So it was just like, testing the waters. I was still like intermittently going back and forth, like taking classes at various institutions as I went along. And then at a certain point, I was just like, yeah, you know what? Let's do this. So I came over to committee in 2017, I think. And then it all kept going from there, because I, at that point, just kind of wanted to bartend so that I was, still able to do school, et cetera, et cetera. And then very quickly, they asked me to come on as the bar manager, and started doing that. And then more venues start coming into the pipeline, and I took on my position as beverage director, and that kind of is a very summarized version of what brings us up to right now,
Yeah, I'm
So-
sure there's so much in between. But I mean, it sounds like a pretty cool,
We've been
when you say Nantucket and then you say Thailand, I'm just picturing the movie Cocktail in my head. And was your life reflective of that at all?
You know what? Yeah, maybe in some small aspects of it, like little snippets of it. But it's funny, when I was in Nantucket, there was like this little thrift store that like all the proceeds went to the hospital on the island, and everyone would just donate stuff. And I don't think we were like far enough out from people having the ability to watch VHS tapes that they thought like, these aren't just like junk. So there was an entire room that was filled with like VHS tapes for like 25 cents a piece or whatever. And it just so happened that like the place that we were staying, that like our restaurant like put all the staff up in, like the TV was like this, I don't know, like 15, maybe 20-inch TV that had like a built-in VHS player in it. So it's like, we didn't have cable. So I just started getting the VHS tapes, and one of them was Cocktail. The first time I watched it was on VHS on Nantucket. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. So now that and Ari, not to cut you off, but to the journey here, now you're part of what we believe is one of the most exciting restaurant groups in the city, and there's a lot to talk about between all the locations. But what I'd like to hear from you, Louis, is about the exciting beverage program that you're putting together, that that's going out to these different restaurants, plus your very intriguing cocktail bar, or I should say speakeasy bar, if I can use those words, that's in the city, that I think, that element is something that Boston's not really used to, in my opinion. But the fact that you and your team have accomplished something like this is like, speaks highly of your efforts, your experience, your talents, your creativity.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think, I would agree with that. I think Boston's not quite used to that in a way that we find them in New York and other major cities, Chicago,
Sure.
in Philadelphia, but like, Boston hasn't really like had that in its truest form, where it is a pain in the ass to find, and you probably can't get in. And I don't think people were or used to that. So it was like, bold to an extent to put that into the rotation of places that people could come and visit. But at the same time, I always kind of viewed it as, hey, this is a nice thing to kind of get the ball rolling, because if everyone is into it, right, it sets a precedent for other people to do similar things if they want to, and it just kind of allows the greater drinking culture to be okay with that, and want more, and be more excited about kind of like different types of experiences. So I mean, that's cool for me, especially now to see it almost a year in, still trucking along, and people actually like being into it.
I mean, all of your locations have a fascinating beverage program. Your wine programs are eclectic. You're featuring, very adventurous, which is great, and the confidence behind your team to actually execute these eclectic programs. Your cocktail program is beyond anything that I've ever seen in the city of Boston. So we can maybe touch light on, the vision and what goes into, your cocktail programs, because I'm sure it's not just about fresh ingredients and a clever name to a cocktail, but I think it's a process. I mean, when we go out with Ari and have drinks, I mean, we've noticed that, it's not just serving, it's also building a cocktail that today we appreciate it, because there's tribute to some of the classics. And I noticed that there's some representation of what cocktails were being offered maybe decades ago. They're being reintroduced, but maybe we can just you can shed some light on the vision, the approach to the program.
Yeah. I think, well, first and foremost, like everything that is going on with Hecate is really story driven. And the importance that I found in that is people like stories. They like to know why things are the way they are, whether or not, they want to, like, how deep they want to get into it. I think it's an important aspect of understanding like what you're drinking, why you're drinking it. Like, take classic cocktails, for instance. they've become classics because, you know, they're probably delicious, but you know, when we go back and we think about the history of it or why it is the way that it is, you know, there is a story behind it, and not because someone just came up with it, but you know, it exists inherently by the virtue of it, you know, sticking around and people caring about understanding why it is that way, right?
Right.
When we're creating new things, we don't have that luxury, but we do have the option of having the intentionality behind, like, you know, the choice of ingredients that we're using, the flavors we're promoting, whatever archetype of cocktail that we're kind of working off of. And then with, you know, with respect to that venue, like the design, the aesthetic, the environment, and especially the menu are all extremely intentional to be cohesive and create a narrative, create a story, create like this mythos that can exist within there, so that, you know, there everything lines up and it is a total experience. So is very important for me to kind of embrace the identity of the aesthetic, the idea, the name, the concept, with each of the drinks that are going on there, so that they tell a story. You know, they're a reference to something else in its name, or the name informs, you know, my process when I was putting them together with the ingredients that are being used. But it all is under the umbrella of, you know, this kind of pan mysticism that can exist, you know, across the globe. It's not specific just to Greek mythology, while it's, you know, named after the Greek goddess of magic like that. Every culture has their own magic or, you know, belief structure that touches on those things. So when we're sourcing ingredients from all over the globe, like, I think paying homage to those various things is important to just kind of, you know, embrace that identity. And that's kind of the process there as far as how it exists, you know.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, you know, kudos to you and what you're doing. Kudos to the fact that you're really ahead of the curve, in my opinion, as we mentioned about the Boston scene. And there's a lot of great restaurants out in the city with great programs, but I think you guys hit it out of the park on all aspects. I think from hospitality to aesthetics, decor, vibe, ambiance, flavors, taste, and execution. We're big fans of what you're doing. And I'm sure you've got a lot on your plate. I mean, and we can talk about the fact that you just mentioned Hecate, which is one of the most recent, if it's, you said within a year, recent additions to the Xenia Greek hospitality group. Maybe you can just touch a little bit about the establishment, so our audience knows, and, you know, inspire them to actually pay a visit and have a drink, and then we can talk about some of the other locations.
Yeah. Hecate, we're open Wednesday through Saturday, 5 to 1. We're tucked in an alley right behind, well, right underneath Cressy, 48 Gloucester Street in Back Bay. So, you know, it is first come, first serve, no reservations, but I mean,
Do you need to know somebody to get in?
doesn't necessarily help, but you know,
just throwing that out there. But so it's so the entrance is alley entrance.
Correct. We have a very small sign, so if you're paying attention, our symbol, sigil is up in the alley, but you have to go through some other doors to get there. So
Gotcha. Okay, but there's no side door inside from Cressy to get there.
no, nope.
Okay, fair enough. And then, you know, you are working on another project that's coming up in the pipeline pretty soon for the Xenia group. I'm sure when we get Tasha on board in our next segment, we can talk about operation wise. Anything else that you want to, you know, shed some light on, or share with us about the beverage program Xenia? I mean, I know we've talked quite a bit about, you know, where you started, where you were going, and where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exciting for me as we have other, concepts in the pipeline, and I'm starting to put those things together, just by the nature and virtue of what we're intending to do in those spaces, culinarily, and then also just, what kind of experience we're trying to offer. That informs what I envision as far as, the drink program goes, because I think they need to mesh, as far as the identity is concerned. So with Bar Vlaha, it's a new exercise in creativity, to make that work in a way that seems cohesive and makes sense and is unique or fun, which is a different thought process and a different method that I use at other venues. So it's an interesting exercise for myself, taking on each new project and or the perpetuation of those. When we done one menu, we move on to the next, and it's like, all right, what are we going to do this time? We can kind of see what the possibilities are, what the reception was for various things, and that informs our decision-making process down the line for how far we want to go with various things. So
Sounds like you're sampling a lot of product.
Yeah, no full drinks, just the constantly
Sure.
tasting things, right?
From my point of view, as somebody who has no idea about any of this stuff, it just sounds so scary to have that pressure of putting that all together, but also so much fun to see your ideas come to life and your creativity come to life, and then see people respond to that, which from my experience, I've seen a lot of positive feedback on what you guys are doing. So it must be like, a great feeling to kind of execute these creative ideas and then see them come to life and then see people enjoying them. So I think that's a really cool aspect of what you do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it goes beyond, like, it's not solely satisfaction to just kind of see it working, or observe service and see people drinking and being like, oh yeah, that's good, but to have people excited about what's going on, try new things, or even, I guess I'll reference Akate again, but like, to have people stop in there because the overall like tone and the idea, the intention, like, grasps them in a way that isn't specific to just them coming and having the beverages. Like, maybe they looked at the menu and something referential on the list was like, oh, cool. I've had people come in like multiple states away just because of the subject matter of like some of the cocktails and references. Like I was saying, like the stories that it's just like, that I identify with that. That's really cool. And that's really interesting to see too, because it's not just like a community that's continuing to be built because of the profile of the drinks or just what they taste like. It's just like the nature of the space itself seems to beckon. And that's kind of neat.
That's super neat. Like I love that whole like thought of how it all works and how like I just said, it's your creativity executed properly, and then you could see the fruits of your labor in the people that come from far off, people that connect with something that you're doing, and it's just a whole cool thing. And you guys are doing it. I mean, you really are.
Well, Lou, you spoke about enjoying what you're doing, but I have another question for you, Lou. When you're not working all these crazy hours and you're just, either hanging out on your at home or you're out with your friends and buddies, what are you drinking? What is your choice of drink?
I'm a rum guy.
Wow.
Yeah, I think, yep. Yeah,
Rum it
either
is.
cocktail or out of a glass or out of a bottle or out of a whatever I can get my hands on. Yeah, no, yeah, rum's my go-to. But if it's more of a low-key time, I'm more than happy to just have a nice cold Budweiser too. So
Yeah.
Fair enough.
That's amazing. I just want to say, Lou, we appreciate so much for you being with us and sharing, a brief summary of your story. But there is plenty more story for Lou and his team. And, like I said, this is kind of like a series. So we're kind of going through the team slowly, one by one, two by two, however we do it. And I just want to say on behalf of us, thanks, Lou, for being with us. Thanks for taking the time out.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's fun.
Our pleasure. If I can also add, I want to thank Lou as well, the beverage director for the Xenia Greek Hospitality Group that also runs and operates Krasi, also Hecate, soon in the pipeline. We're very anxious and ready when it opens, Bar Vlacha in Brookline. But they're also the proprietors of, let's mention, Greco and Aguara, their retail shop with e-commerce as well.
Absolutely. All right. So everybody out there watching and listening, thank you so much for being with us. Once again, Lou, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Amazing story. Can't wait to meet you in person at some point. And good luck in all your future endeavors. Good luck with everything you guys are doing. Thanks everybody out there for watching and listening. Thank you to my co-host Foti, and we will see you all next time.
Cheers,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Lou.